7 days ago, Burkina Faso was shaken by the sudden death of prominent activist Ibrahim Traoré. On July 27, 2025, Ivorian Public Prosecutor Ibrahim Traoré announced that Alino, detained in Ivory Coast since January, had taken his own life. The statement, delivered without detail or emotion and 3 days after the alleged suicide, sparked outrage and suspicion across the region. Alino Faso, 44, was one of Burkina Faso's most influential voices, with over 400,000 followers online. Known for his staunch support of the military-led governments in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and for the Alliance of Sahel States AES. He was a fierce critic of Ivory Coast's leadership in its ties to France. Though he had Ivorian citizenship and lived in Abidjan, his activism and humanitarian work kept him closely connected to Burkina Faso. On January 10, 2025, Ivorian authorities arrested him, accusing him of collaborating with a foreign state widely understood to mean Burkina Faso in ways that could threaten Ivory Coast's security. For over 6 months, he was held without trial in a military facility. Human rights groups condemned his detention as arbitrary and inhumane. According to official reports, Alino attempted to cut his wrists before allegedly hanging himself in his cell on July 24, yet questions quickly mounted. Why the 72-hour delay in announcing his death? Why was his family not informed directly? Why no suicide note? For many, the idea that this defiant, politically driven figure would take his own life is implausible. Burkina Faso's government reacted sharply. On July 28, its foreign ministry summoned the Ivorian chargé d'affaires, demanding a full investigation and the return of Alino's body. Officials condemned the failure to notify either his family or the Burkinabe embassy, calling it a breach of diplomatic norms and an act of disrespect. They also questioned how a suicide could occur in a high-security facility. The controversy has crossed political lines in Ivory Coast. The opposition Ivorian Popular Party PPACI, led by allies of former President Laurent Gbagbo, criticized both Alino's detention and the suspicious circumstances of his death. They demanded urgent reforms to what they described as inhuman prison conditions. Public anger has spilled into the streets. On July 30th, thousands in Ouagadougou marched in white from the Thomas Sankara Memorial to the Ivorian embassy, calling for justice. Organized by civil society groups, the protests framed Alino's death as an attack on national dignity and Pan-African solidarity. The case comes amid growing tensions between Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast, fueled by opposing alliances in West Africa's shifting geopolitical landscape. For many, Alino's death is not just a personal tragedy but a political message, one that could further destabilize relations between the two nations. Whether Ivory Coast chooses transparency or silence will shape what happens next.